An NBA legend doesn't casually stop what he's doing to talk about a rookie quarterback unless something real is happening. And when Dwyane Wade turned heads with his comments about Shedeur Sanders, it sent a signal that this story is bigger than box scores, bigger than one game, and bigger than Cleveland. Because Wade wasn't talking about arm strength. He wasn't breaking down film. He wasn't hyping stats. He was talking about something you can't measure, the way Shedeur carries himself when the lights are brightest and the questions are sharpest. The way he handles pressure that most rookies never face, and the way he refuses to let outside noise turn him against his team, his coach, or his own identity. That matters a lot, especially when you consider what's coming next. This Sunday, Shedeur Sanders isn't just playing another game. He's lining up across from Josh Allen, one of the most dominant players in the league, leading a Buffalo team fighting for position and respect. On paper, it looks lopsided. Experience versus youth. MVP pedigree versus a rookie still finding his footing. But that's exactly why people are paying attention. Because this isn't about whether Shedeur is supposed to win. It's about how he responds, how he leads, how he handles a moment most quarterbacks never get this early in their career. And when someone like Dwyane Wade says there's something different, something internal, something you don't see at first glance, it forces you to look closer. Cleveland has waited decades for a quarterback that commands belief, not just hope. The league passed on Shedeur more than once. Expectations are already unfairly high. And yet, here he is, stepping into another spotlight, with another chance to show why people from completely different sports are taking notice. Because sometimes, the most important story isn't about taking someone down. It's about proving you belong in the moment. And what happens next could change the conversation all over again. When someone like Dwyane Wade speaks, people listen. Not just because of who he is, but because of what he's seen. Wade isn't a casual observer. He's lived through pressure that most athletes never experience. Championship expectations, media scrutiny, franchise responsibility, and that's exactly why his comments about Shedeur Sanders landed differently. This wasn't a former athlete throwing out generic praise. Wade wasn't chasing headlines or clicks. He zeroed in on something that rarely gets discussed with rookie quarterbacks, how they handle everything outside the lines. The cameras, the questions, the attempts to bait reactions, the subtle efforts to create division between player and coach. Wade recognized that immediately because he's been there. What stood out to him wasn't just how Shedeur plays, but how he carries himself when the environment gets uncomfortable. Press conferences where the questions feel loaded. Moments where narratives are clearly being pushed. Situations where it would be easy to deflect blame or show frustration. Instead, Shedeur stays composed. He doesn't point fingers. He doesn't throw teammates under the bus. He doesn't take shots at coaches, even when the setup might invite it. That's leadership, and leadership is something Wade understands at an elite level. Across sports, the traits that separate great players from impactful ones are often the same: poise under pressure, accountability, self-control when emotions are high. Wade saw those traits in Shedeur early, and that's why his endorsement matters more than most. It's cross-sport respect rooted in shared experience, not hype. It also matters because rookie quarterbacks rarely get grace. They're expected to perform immediately while navigating systems they didn't build and expectations they didn't set. When a veteran voice like Wade publicly acknowledges how Shedeur is handling that pressure, it reframes the conversation. It shifts focus away from raw stats and toward sustainability. Because talent might get you noticed, but character determines whether you last. And Wade's comments subtly pushed back against the idea that Shedeur is just another young quarterback trying to survive. Instead, they painted the picture of someone already operating like a leader, someone who understands that how you respond to adversity matters just as much as how you perform when things are easy. And that's why these words resonated. Because when someone who's carried franchises and silenced arenas says, "There's something there," it usually means he's seeing the foundation of something bigger. And that foundation becomes even more important once you understand what Shedeur has been dealing with in Cleveland. What Dwyane Wade picked up on had nothing to do with completion percentage or touchdown totals. It was something far more subtle and far more important in the long run. Wade wasn't watching Shedeur Sanders like a fan. He was watching him like a leader who's been through the fire. What stood out immediately was how Shedeur Sanders handles moments most rookies struggle with the most: the press conferences after tough games, the loaded questions, the thinly veiled attempts to stir controversy, the moments where one wrong sentence can become a week-long headline. That's where Wade leaned in, because he knows exactly how dangerous those moments can be. Time after time, Shedeur walks into those rooms knowing what's coming. You can almost feel it. The tone of the questions is different, the patience is shorter, the expectations are heavier, and yet he never bites. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't shift blame. He doesn't subtly point fingers at coaches, teammates, or play calling, even when the setup practically invites it. That's rare, especially for a rookie who's still earning his footing in the league. Most young quarterbacks crack under that kind of pressure. They get defensive, they overshare, or they try to protect themselves by distancing from the team. Shedeur does the opposite. He absorbs it. He speaks calmly. He keeps the focus on growth and accountability. And most importantly, he shields the locker room. That's what Wade recognized instantly. Because leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about not fracturing when things get uncomfortable. Wade spent years answering questions designed to create drama in Miami. He knows the trap, and watching Shedeur sidestep it over and over again told him something stats never could. It showed emotional discipline. It showed maturity beyond his years. It showed someone who understands that being the face of a franchise isn't just about Sundays. It's about every microphone that gets shoved in your face afterward. And that's why Wade's praise hit differently. He wasn't saying Shedeur is already elite. He was saying the foundation is there, the internal wiring, the part you can't coach easily, the part that either exists or doesn't. Plenty of quarterbacks can throw the ball. Very few can carry pressure without letting it spill everywhere. That's the trait Wade saw. That's why he spoke up. And that's why this story goes deeper than numbers on a stat sheet. This is where the story stops being just about Shedeur Sanders and starts being about Cleveland itself. Because the relationship between the Cleveland Browns and their quarterbacks has never been simple, and Shedeur walked straight into that history the moment he arrived. For decades, Cleveland has searched for stability at the most important position in sports. Coaches changed, systems reset, quarterbacks came and went. Every new season carried hope, and every setback reopened old wounds. That context matters because it shapes how players are treated before they ever take a snap. From the start, Shedeur wasn't just another rookie. He came in with a spotlight, expectations, and a last name that guaranteed attention. And instead of easing that pressure, the environment around him felt heavier. Questions came faster, doubts surfaced earlier, and patience felt shorter than it was for others. Inside the building, the messaging stayed cautious. He needed time. He wasn't ready yet. The team wanted to be careful. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. But outside the building, fans watched other rookies around the league get immediate opportunities, full reps, and public trust. That contrast didn't go unnoticed. Then there was the media dynamic. Press conferences became uncomfortable fast. The tone felt sharper. Questions felt less curious and more confrontational. Instead of focusing on growth, many conversations revolved around proving readiness or explaining why something didn't work. That puts a rookie in a tough position, especially one still fighting for consistent opportunity. What makes this relationship complicated is that Shedeur didn't respond with frustration. He didn't push back publicly. He didn't take shots at coaches or teammates. He stayed composed, even when the situation invited tension. And that restraint, while admirable, also highlighted the imbalance. A young quarterback absorbing pressure while the narrative around him stayed unresolved. For fans, this created division. Some saw a player being protected slowly. Others saw hesitation bordering on mistrust. And once that split forms, every decision gets magnified. Every rep becomes a referendum. Every mistake feels bigger than it should. That's the weight Shedeur has been carrying. Not just learning the NFL, not just learning a playbook, but navigating a franchise still wrestling with its past. And when someone performs under that kind of complexity, without fracturing, it tells you something important. Because talent might survive chaos, but leadership reveals itself in it. And that's why this relationship, complicated as it is, has become one of the most important stories in Cleveland right now. Draft night is supposed to be a moment of validation. For most quarterbacks, it's where belief becomes official. But for Shedeur Sanders, draft night told a very different story, one that still echoes through the league today. As the rounds passed, the conversation around Shedeur quietly shifted. Teams weren't questioning his arm talent. They weren't questioning his production. Instead, doubts started forming around things that are harder to quantify. Fit, system, timeline, readiness. The kind of vague concerns that don't show up on film but still influence decisions. And one by one, teams passed. Not once, not twice, multiple times. By the time Shedeur finally heard his name called, the label had already been attached. Developmental, project, long-term play. It didn't matter that other quarterbacks with similar experience were taken earlier. The narrative had settled in, and once that happens on draft night, it's hard to shake. Around the league, this wasn't framed as disrespect, it was framed as patience. Teams claimed they were being cautious, taking the safe route, waiting for the right situation. But that caution came with consequences, because draft position doesn't just affect contracts, it shapes perception. It decides who gets early reps, who gets grace, who gets time to learn on the job. And Shedeur didn't get that benefit. From day one, he entered the league needing to prove something others didn't. Every throw carried extra weight. Every mistake felt louder. He wasn't just competing for snaps. He was competing against an assumption that he needed more time than everyone else. What makes this even more interesting is how quickly that assumption has been challenged. In limited opportunities, Shedeur showed poise, command, and composure that contradicted the long-term project label. Enough, in fact, to earn respect well beyond Cleveland. Enough to catch the attention of fans, former players, and voices from entirely different sports. That's why draft night keeps coming back into the conversation. Because when someone who slid down boards starts forcing his way into relevance early, it naturally raises questions. Were teams too cautious? Did they overthink it? Or did the league miss something hiding in plain sight? No one can rewrite draft night, but performances have a way of reopening evaluations. And every time Shedeur steps onto the field, that doubt, the doubt shared quietly across draft rooms, gets tested again. Because sometimes, being overlooked doesn't slow a player down. Sometimes it sharpens them. And that makes what comes next even more interesting. This is where expectations completely detach from reality, and where Shedeur Sanders finds himself in a situation most rookies are never asked to survive, let alone thrive in. From the outside, the narrative feels simple. He's a rookie quarterback. He needs to grow. He'll make mistakes. That's normal. But inside Cleveland, the expectations placed on him have quietly gone far beyond what's reasonable. Instead of being allowed to develop gradually, Shedeur has been treated like a solution to problems he didn't create. He wasn't handed the job from day one. He didn't get a full offseason as the unquestioned starter. He didn't spend months building chemistry with the first-team offense. Those reps matter more than fans realize. Timing, trust, communication, none of that develops overnight. And yet, once he stepped onto the field, the standard immediately jumped. Suddenly, he was expected to stabilize an offense with protection issues, to elevate receivers still finding consistency, to operate cleanly behind an offensive line that struggled to hold up week after week. That's not rookie football, that's franchise quarterback pressure. And here's the disconnect. When other young quarterbacks struggle, it's framed as growth, learning curves, necessary mistakes. With Shedeur, every misstep feels amplified. One bad throw becomes a headline. One rough series turns into a referendum. The margin for patience shrinks fast when expectations are unclear. What makes this situation even tougher is that the asks keep piling up. Protect the ball, lead the locker room, handle the media, fix the offense, win games, do it quickly, do it cleanly, and do it without excuses. That's a heavy load for any quarterback, rookie or veteran. Still, Shedeur hasn't pushed back publicly. He hasn't lowered the bar. He's acknowledged mistakes without spiraling. He's talked openly about learning, adjusting, and improving week to week. That response matters because it shows awareness of reality, not denial of it. This is the gap people are starting to notice. The reality is that development doesn't happen in a vacuum. It needs structure, patience, and support. Expecting instant transformation without providing those things creates unfair evaluations. And yet, that's the environment Shedeur is navigating right now. He isn't just learning how to play NFL quarterback. He's learning how to do it under pressure that most rookies never face. And that contrast between what's expected and what's actually provided is why this part of the story matters more than any stat line. Because how a player responds here often determines everything that comes next. Now the spotlight gets even brighter because this isn't just another Sunday matchup. This is Shedeur Sanders lining up across from Josh Allen, one of the most dominant players of the last 5 years, with real stakes attached on both sides. The Buffalo Bills aren't coming to Cleveland for reps or experimentation. They're fighting for positioning, momentum, and control of their season. Josh Allen is playing at an MVP caliber level again, and when he gets rolling, games can spiral fast. Big arm, physical runner, no fear attacking tight windows. He's the benchmark for what a modern franchise quarterback looks like. And that's exactly why this matchup matters. Because for Shedeur, this isn't about outdueling Allen throw for throw. That's not the standard. The real test is composure, decision-making, command. Can he keep the game within reach when pressure hits? Can he respond when Buffalo punches first? Those are the moments evaluators actually care about, even if fans focus on the final score. What makes this challenge even tougher is the environment around him. Cleveland's margin for error is thin. The offensive line has struggled. The run game has been inconsistent. Special teams have left points on the field. That means Shedeur doesn't get the luxury of easing into the game. Every drive matters. Every mistake is magnified. And on the other side, Buffalo knows this. They'll test him early, disguised coverages, late pressure, situations designed to force quick decisions. That's how experienced teams treat young quarterbacks. They make them prove it snap by snap. But here's the part people keep overlooking. Games like this aren't where rookies are defined by wins. They're defined by response, how they handle adversity, whether they shrink or stabilize when things tilt, whether teammates believe in them when the opponent is elite. If Shedeur keeps Cleveland competitive into the fourth quarter, that alone sends a message, not to fans, but to the league. It says he belongs in these moments, that the stage isn't too big, that the learning curve is moving forward, not backward. And if he flashes, just a few throws, a few drives, it reinforces why people like Dwyane are paying attention to things beyond stats. Because playing Josh Allen isn't just a test. It's a measuring stick. And how Shedeur measures up in this moment will echo long after the scoreboard fades. This is where the conversation needs to slow down just enough to get honest, because real growth doesn't always look flashy. It doesn't always show up in highlight reels or final scores. And for Shedeur Sanders, growth right now is happening in places most casual viewers don't even think to look. It starts with decision-making, not perfection, progress. Knowing when to take the check down instead of forcing a throw. Knowing when to throw the ball away instead of trying to be the hero. Those are small choices, but they're the difference between chaos and control. And week by week, that's where evaluators pay attention. Then there's response. Every quarterback throws bad passes. Every rookie makes mistakes. What matters is what happens next. Does the game speed him up? Does he start pressing? Or does he reset, settle back in, and play within the moment? That's where growth shows itself most clearly. And that's what coaches quietly track far more than fans realize. Another piece is command. You can see it in body language, in the huddle, at the line of scrimmage. Is he confident setting protections? Is he communicating clearly with receivers? Is he steady when things break down? These aren't things you learn from sitting. They only come from live reps, mistakes, and correction. That's why judging a rookie strictly by box scores misses the point. Growth isn't linear. Some weeks look cleaner than others. Some games expose weaknesses. But each snap builds a mental library, what worked, what didn't, and why. And that foundation matters far more than one stat line. Shedeur himself has acknowledged this. He's talked openly about learning to manage games better, about cutting down costly turnovers, about staying disciplined even when trailing. That mindset matters, because growth starts with awareness, not denial. What makes this stretch important is that expectations are finally aligning with reality. Instead of asking him to be perfect, the focus shifts to improvement. Fewer forced mistakes, better situational awareness, stronger finishes. Those are realistic benchmarks, and they're the ones teams actually use when projecting a quarterback's future. And here's the truth most people forget. This is likely the worst it's going to look. Every rep from here builds forward. Every mistake becomes information. Every challenge sharpens something internal. That's how quarterbacks are forged, not by being protected from adversity, but by learning how to navigate it. That's what real growth looks like. And if you're watching closely, it's already happening. There's a phrase that keeps circling back in this story, and the more you watch it unfold, the more it fits. The rejected will be respected, because that's exactly what this moment represents for Shedeur Sanders. He wasn't handed anything. He wasn't crowned early. He wasn't protected from pressure or wrapped in patience. He entered the league with doubt attached to his name, slid past by teams on draft night, and walked into a franchise still haunted by its past. And instead of breaking under that weight, he's been quietly building something in plain sight. What makes this journey different isn't just what's happening on the field. It's how he's handling everything around it. The media pressure, the expectations, the constant comparisons, the noise that follows every throw. Through all of it, Shedeur hasn't flinched. He hasn't deflected blame. He hasn't fractured the room. He's taken responsibility, owned mistakes, and kept moving forward. That's where respect starts. Not with wins alone, not with stat lines, but with how a player responds when things aren't perfect, when the situation is messy, when the margin for error feels unfairly small. Those moments reveal character faster than success ever will. For the Cleveland Browns, this is a defining stretch, not because of one matchup or one outcome, but because of what they choose to prioritize. Growth over panic, development over noise, stability over reaction. The decisions made now will echo far longer than this season. For Shedeur, this isn't the end of anything. It's the foundation. He's learning the league the hard way through adversity, scrutiny, and moments that test confidence. And while that path is tougher, it also forges something deeper, something durable. The truth is, not every quarterback who's doubted early survives it, but the ones who do often come out sharper, steadier, and harder to shake. Respect earned through resistance carries more weight than respect handed out easily. That's why this story matters. Because no matter how loud the criticism gets, no matter how heavy the expectations feel, momentum has already shifted. People are paying attention. Teammates are watching. Voices from outside the sport are noticing. The rejection already happened. What comes next is respect. And how far that respect goes will be decided one response at a time.